Welcome back, film fans. I hope you're all well. I hope you're all doing good. This video has been, it came about as a result of repeated conversations that I have with people. And it's probably a phenomenon, that happens to you too, if you kind of proclaim yourself to be a kind of movie lover or a cinephile who's passionate about film, is you get talking to people about films. And when you declare that you kind of, you love you love films, you're a film geek, nerd, however you want to kind of put yourself across in that moment, people will kind of like make assumptions about your film taste off the basis of you declaring your passion for cinema or film. And I usually find in my experience they're almost always kind of wrong. And this kind of weird irony, this ironic thing happens where like, if you declare that you're passionate about film, you get loads of recommendations as opposed to you being the kind of source of recommending to others. It's people say, "Oh, have you seen this? You should see it," blah blah blah. But most of the times people make assumptions about what you like because they're kind of popular or they're the most famous things. Kind of like a good example of this would be, if you say to someone, you're kind of passionate about cinema, you love alternative films or whatever, someone might say, "Oh, you're a fan of Wes Anderson." Straight away, it's Wes Anderson is the kind of the shortcut or the shorthand in vogue director to name. That's almost like kind of crossed over from like culty to like that. He sits in between like mainstream and cult, and alternative. To the point where obviously Wes Anderson kind of, literally Wes Anderson was like a memeing thing, wasn't it, on Instagram with, kind of people replicating Wes Anderson like shots. That's how you know someone's kind of crossed over into the kind of the mainstream somewhat. But so with that said, I wanted to make as the video title suggests, 10 movie franchises I should love, but don't. And there's kind of two qualifications I want to make for this list. Well, actually, there's several, but the two main ones being, so this is either like movie franchises that I've seen parts of or all of that I despise, like I actively don't like, or I have utter indifference towards them, either based on having seen them or my indifference has meant that I haven't seen them. So these are movie franchises that I either don't love by virtue of just not having seen them, like I have zero interest, or I've seen them and I don't like them at all. So it's kind of like two camps here, and I'll go through each choice and explain why that is the case for each one. Like I say, this is going to be like a little series that I'm doing because I don't know how long my rants are going to go, because this might get a bit ranty. We'll see. So I'm going to break it down into I'm going to run down from 10 to 1. They're going to be ranked by virtue of how against the grain I think I'm going with these, how unpopular these choices might be. So like 1 being the most controversial, 10 being the kind of least, but also how kind of vitriolic and how passionate I'm going to be in my takedown of these maybe. So we'll see. But the other qualifications for this being that these have to be, so for it to be a franchise, I think it has to have at least 4 or more films. It can't be a trilogy. It can't be a movie that just had a sequel. For me, it has to be, because trilogies we can do our own separate videos, right? And on that, and I probably will. And same with like sequels that I thought were inferior, unwarranted, or maybe superior in the rare instance, because we seldom recommend sequels, really. I mean, if we say something's a great sequel, that's remarkable in of itself because we know how rare that is. It's usually the original is the best. So with that said, like I'm someone who's kind of averse to sequels and franchises in general anyway, because I learned like from an early age that the law of inferior returns, the law of diminishing returns, it feels like it is indeed a law in cinema. So much so that when we get a superior sequel, like I say, it is kind of remarkable. So that's not saying there aren't sequels without interest, and like I say, I'll probably do another video on that. But like I say, 4 films or more as a kind of minimum. With that said, let's get into the list. Let's start with the kind of, I think, the least Controversial pick, but nonetheless maybe something that might irk a lot of people, is because there are people, this is a kind of popular franchise. I'm not quite sure why. And that I'll be saying that probably with every choice, by the way. I'm not quite sure why this is popular. I just don't get it. Is the Death Wish franchise. So that's obviously the films that started, what, 1972, I believe. I don't know if I got the year right there. Charles Bronson as Paul Kersey, the kind of the aging, what is he, city architect, designer, or whatever he is, that essentially takes the law into his own hands when his wife is sexually assaulted and killed in the first one, and decides the law is ill-equipped and inefficient, and so therefore he must take matters into his own hands. Standard kind of like vigilante plot for right. So this is the thing with the vigilante film, you kind of know what you're getting. You kind of know the plot arc before you even watch the film. You've seen one vigilante film, you've kind of seen them all. Okay, that's not to say that vigilante films aren't interesting, but I think there is an innate controversy about them, because I was asking myself earlier, why does this franchise, and this is the reason I have it on this list, is how on earth did this warrant 4 sequels and a remake, by the way, 7 or 8 years ago with Bruce Willis in the lead role? How did it warrant 4 sequels when, let's be honest, the first film wasn't that great or spectacular to begin with? It was successful, and I think it was successful on the basis of its controversy, because this is essentially, vigilante films are always going to get kind of politically problematic because of they are kind of innately reactionary or conservative, or at least the Death Wish franchise was. And so the first one generated a lot of controversy, debates. You can even watch some of the old debate programs on YouTube, actually. I think I've watched 1 or 2. And then Death Wish 2, obviously, how are you going to do that? You're going to up the controversy. So Death Wish 2 is even more controversial in its depiction of things that happen, this time to Paul Kersey's daughter. And, again, we go on and on from there. He's like the most unlucky character, surely protagonist, especially when it comes to women in the history of cinema, maybe. Just steer clear of him. Don't go near Paul Kersey. Like, he's cursed. Like, it's just ridiculous. And of course, the series gets more and more ridiculous as you go into the 3rd, 4th, 5th films. The 3rd film, becomes a kind of OAP Terminator where he mows down, it feels like hundreds and hundreds of people. The 4th film, Death Wish 4 Crackdown, is him taking down drug syndicate because 80s, I guess. And Death Wish 5 is, I haven't even seen all of Death Wish 5, so I couldn't even comment on it. I've just seen bits of it. In fact, there was a video floating around. This is probably before the days that YouTube became the place to go for videos, in which someone made like a kind of edited version of the Death Wish kill counter. He hits over 100 bodies, 100 people that he kills, which is just, like I say, it's him challenging, kind of channeling a kind of Rambo mode, but for OAPs, really. Each sequel gets more and more ridiculous, stupid. I wouldn't say more offensive, because I think the stupider they get, the less you take them seriously, less they risk offence. I think the first 2 are probably the most, because they kind of present themselves as being morally serious, are the most problematic and most offensive. And the ones I grew up with in particular are 2 and 4, and 2 in particular is a real slog to get through. Some of the scenes are very, they're challenging to get through, I would say. But nonetheless, that is done for them to evoke the sense of kind of righteousness within us all, so he gets the retribution, right? That's how these films work. So you have to come up with more and more reprehensible acts that the villains, the antagonists of the picture, are going to do in order to justify him slaughtering them all, essentially. But yeah, I sit here and I go, that had 4 sequels. Like I said, the first one wasn't even that great to begin with. And I've even, like, as I've gotten older, I've come to actually appreciate Michael Winner as being somewhat of a more, like, actually a competent director if you look at some of his other films. But off the basis of Death Wish, I wouldn't have guessed it. So, yeah, Death Wish 1 through 5. To steal a kind of joke from The Simpsons, I wish this franchise died long before it did. Which I think the 5th one was made in the 90s, which Charles Bronson must have been in his surely his mid to late 70s by then, surely. Yeah, so that's my number 10 pick. Number 9 is, and by the way, I'm going to do probably 3 picks to this video because I've already gone 10 minutes. So I'll do 3 picks. I'll do from 10 to 8, and then I'll do another video where I do 7 to 5, and then we'll go on from that point. But number 9 is an interesting one where I'm kind of slightly breaking my own rule, but only by technicality. So number 9, I'm going with Avatar. The Avatar franchise. So we've had 2 release films, but we've got 3 more that are being made in various different stages of production. So we've got 3 more sequels coming. I think the next one's maybe like 2025, so next year, but we shall see. The first one came out in 2009. The second one came out, was it last year? Is it called Way of the Water, or am I just making that up? I don't even know. So the second one came out last year or the year before, can't even remember, like I say. Now, I haven't seen either Avatar films. So this is the one which I haven't seen because of my sheer kind of indifference towards it in the first place. Just means I haven't seen them. Which is weird because James Cameron, of course, directs them. Now, my story regarding Avatar is, so back in 2008, 7 and 8, I was, hugely, back then, like devouring cinema, watching films left, right and centre. I was collecting and buying and reading film magazines. And of course, there was huge publicity, huge promotion for James Cameron's Avatar, which is the first film that he would have been released, well, would have made since Titanic. So that's 12 years prior. Okay, 12 years. And to think, so that was like a huge point of hype for me, right? Because to think that this is a guy who between 1984 and 1997 made Terminator, Aliens, The Abyss, Terminator 2, True Lies, and Titanic. 6 movies in the space of 13 years. He's made, in the last, 16 years? 2. Avatar 1 and 2. And that's kind of like now a retrospective reason for me why I have such indifference towards them, is because like I feel like it's actually killed James Cameron's productivity and creativity as a filmmaker, to be honest with you. I know I'm saying that having not seen the films, but 2 films in that time, when I've just said those 6 films that he made in about the space of 13 years, shows the difference. I know James Cameron is a director who, he's a person who like has passions outside of, particularly like deep sea diving, and he's someone who clearly, when he takes on something, he does it to the most, almost the most extreme. He's not someone who does things in half measures, and I respect and admire that. And you can see that in his films as well. He's a very, almost like dictatorial director, right? It's his way or no way, I think. And I think that's led to some kind of remarkable or interesting films from him. I'm a fan of James Cameron, so I was looking forward to Avatar coming out. And then the more I read up on it, the more I just realised I don't like the look of the film. I don't like the sound of the film. And I also don't like, almost like how heavily it was being marketed towards me. I just felt like, obviously he was being given carte blanche of the success of Titanic. Titanic made over $1 billion. This is back in 1997. And in fact, Avatar, I think, was only the second only movie at that point to ever gross $1 billion. So he had 2 of the 2 movies. He was 2 for 2. He's pretty, I could spend far too long figuring out what it is about him that every single movie he makes is so financially successful, because I don't know why. And I don't mean that as a knock. I just mean like, what is the common thread with all of his movies? Because it's not like he's a huge self-publicist or anything. It's not like he's a kind of in the vein of a kind of a Hitchcock or even like a Nolan or something, where I just don't get it really from that perspective. But nonetheless, he's a hugely successful director. The most successful director, right? And but so by the time it came out, and this is the thing with Avatar, right, is when it came out, there were kind of 3 reactions. People were obviously either really disappointed with it because of the time that it had taken to come out, Cameron's first film in years, and they were like, oh, it's kind of really derivative and it's not that great looking, and, or people were either, indifferent to it, like one sheer indifference, or the third reaction was kind of, it was getting 5-star reviews. It was getting really good reviews, right? But I just felt, and that was kind of in a lot of mainstream publications, really. But looking back now, years on, right? Who do you know that will ever name Avatar as one of the best movies they've seen, or the best film of that year, or the best film of the decade. Like, Avatar is this weird thing where it's like, it feels like they're two of the most successful movies ever made, yet I can't find anyone that's seen them. It's like a weird conspiracy thing where it's like, how are they like two of the most successful movies ever made, widely seen in the cinemas at least, and yet I can't find anyone that really has seen them. Never mind loves them, and yet you have the arrogance of this. 3 pre-planned sequels that are being made concurrently off the back of the first. Wow, this was in planning and placement after the first one. The arrogance of that, right? And I think this shows you, like, this really shows you the kind of the cynicism of like modern Hollywood. Is like, we don't even know if we don't care or know if these movies are even going to be like successful or popular or not, or how people are going to feel about them. Usually a sequel is justified by people's reverence and passion, the feelings they have towards the previous ones. We haven't even had 3 and 4 yet, but we know number 5 is coming. There's, like I said, the arrogance of that, and the sheer, there's almost like a contempt of like, we don't actually care what you think or how you feel about these films. We're making them regardless. And I feel like people see them out of indifference. Like I say, no one I've known is really passionate about Avatar. Maybe I'll bump into a few if anyone leaves any comments. Maybe you guys love Avatar, but like I say, it's almost like people go and see them out of indifference. They consume them out of indifference. Oh, new Avatar's on? Yeah, let's go watch that. Almost like it's, like a FIFA game that's released every year. You just buy it just because it's like a tradition, a thing to do. The difference with me is, so people go and see it out of sheer indifference. The difference with me is, I do the opposite. I will not see them out of my sheer indifference towards them. I just don't care. Okay, so I just feel like they're now the cinematic equivalent of like eating my vegetables. So the Avatar's on the plate, and I will leave it till last. That's just how it is. So I don't know when I'll get round to watching them. You could say it's an embarrassing omission from my filmography, not my filmography, but like my kind of my kind of the films I've seen. I don't care. Like it's just like I say, maybe if more people were passionate about it, they would convince, oh, you know what, maybe I should actually give them a try. But I just don't care. So that's my number 9. Last one for this video, number 8, is the maybe, like I say, a bit more controversial. We'll see, because these aren't really held high in high critical regard, but I think the box office shows that they're beloved. I've got number 8, the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. I had to even look this up at how many films there were, because I genuinely didn't know. 5, okay? Well, at least I think it was 5. 5 films. Now, the first one grossed 654 million, okay? Which warranted the rest being made. And to date, this franchise is, because I say to date because you never know, there might be another one, 4.5 billion this franchise has taken over 5 movies. 4.5 billion off a movie that was based off a Disney theme park ride. I mean, Pirates of the Caribbean was one of these, to me, it's like almost like an industrial moment type thing. It's really kind of pinpoints a certain thing about modern Hollywood. One is that, like, it seemed to be like it was at a time where everyone had seen it, or you walk into a living room or you walk into a room and it was on in the background. And again, no one really passionately loves these films, it feels like. It's just like everyone's seen them, and when it's on, people just watch it because they have nothing else to do. It's almost like it's born out of cynicism and apathy. It's just, let's watch Pirates of the Caribbean because why not? This, by the way, when I say this, I've seen none of the films in their entirety. I've seen bits of the first, I think bits of the third. I don't care. They all kind of look and seem the same to me anyway. Maybe I'm being unfair, maybe I'm not. But and I don't care if Hans Zimmer's like scoring it. That's not going to encourage me to see the film in of itself anyway. But just like I say, they all just look and feel the same. It's just like, and you kind of blink and you miss, and you go, bloody hell, they made 5 films. Jeez, like, it's out of nowhere kind of type thing. But at least it feels like that to me. That's how out the loop I am, I suppose, with the kind of these kinds of films. But yeah, the fact it's based off a Disney theme park ride, it just shows you the creative nadir of modern Hollywood. I think it's really symbolic of that, of how they're running out of ideas. You're making a movie off a theme park ride. But I think one of the other reasons that I haven't seen these films is because I'm not the biggest fan of Johnny Depp, particularly when he's channeling that kind of zany, kooky, quirky side. So, and because he's that and then some in these films, I mean, yeah, it says everything that it is. Jack Sparrow is like one of the most kind of iconic characters in modern cinema. It feels like now, with what is ostensibly, isn't it, like a bad Keith Richards kind of impression or something. I find it really irritable. I don't find it endearing. I don't want to sit through 5 films, or if he's in all 5, I don't know. I don't want to sit through all that. They're also very long, I think. The run times, over 2 hours. Every single one of them, I think. Ridiculous. Doesn't need to be that long. Don't need to exist, as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, those are films that, 3 examples of films that give people apparently loads of joy that Misery Guts here hates. So, or just doesn't really give 2 shits about. So, I say that and I'm here I am ranting about them, but you know what I mean. I don't care to see them, is what I mean. Or if I have seen them, I kind of wish I hadn't. I suppose with Death Wish, that, like I say, there is a bit of a guilty pleasure element in the sense that, like, the more ridiculous they get, the more you can kind of ironically enjoy them because they are ridiculously stupid. But yeah, those are my first 3. Check out the next one where I will do, like I say, entries 7 to 5. Let me know what you think of my picks. Do you agree or disagree with anything or all of what I've said? And let me know some of the franchises that you don't like that everyone else seems to love, or that are really popular and you think, I just don't get it. Maybe they'll be mentioned by me in picks 7 to 1. Who knows? But like I say, I'm going to leave you guys there. Be sure to catch me on the next one. As always, show love by commenting, like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I will see you guys soon on the next one. Take care.